couple of weeks ago, I was in a meeting and someone said to me, "Andy, will you do a presentation on sustainable energy? Please go on, I'll be your best friend." And I said, "Oh, all right then, go on." And they said, "Great, thanks, it's next week." When I started preparing the talk, I suddenly thought, you know what? I should film actually preparing one of these presentations, because I teach courses on making science presentations, and I should actually show myself going through the process of actually making one of these things, and people can see what I'm talking about when I say always take 2 weeks, make a bubble diagram, blah blah blah, do your practicing, and I'll actually show them what I do and what I mean. So here it is. Pom. Right at the beginning of preparing a presentation, we have to remember a couple of rules. Rule number 1, a presentation always takes at least 2 weeks. Okay? 2 weeks. Usually we try and do it in about 2 days, right? Your presentation is on Monday. Maybe you'll get it started on a Saturday morning, or maybe even the Sunday, and hope that you can work all Sunday and then most of the Monday itself. All right? Absolutely no way. That is not going to be nearly enough time. You need 2 weeks. 2 weeks will give you plenty of time to get your preparation done, and it will give you time to make mistakes, have things go wrong, and get on with the other things in your life that you need to do. So accordingly, I have got 1 week for my presentation. So I've already broken Andy's number 1 rule of making presentations, and I've broken it by a whole week. This means things are going to get a little bit tough. The first thing we need to know about preparing presentations is that it comes in 4 stages. Our first stage is our initial planning. Our second stage is making our rough draft. Our third stage is making our slides, and our fourth stage is presenting. So today we are going to work on making our rough draft. Now, our initial planning should be very simple. Really, we've got to think about 2 things. Who are we presenting to, and how long is it going to be? So in my case, I am presenting to some high school students who are specialists in science, and that's going to be very important for us. Whoever your audience is, you will need to make a different presentation for different kinds of audiences. So, for example, I'm a systems chemist. If I'm making a presentation for other systems chemists, it will have to be different to a presentation that I make to a general audience of chemists, which will still be different to a presentation I make to a general audience of scientists and engineers, which will still be different to a presentation I make to high school students specializing in science, which will still be different to a presentation that I make to the general public. Those are all different presentations. They will need different slides, they will need different content and different explanations. That's the first part of my very initial preparation done, is I know who it's for. Sounds simple, but most scientists and engineers don't bother thinking about that. They just make the presentation that they want to make, and they don't spend time asking themselves, who is it for? Second part, we need to know how long is it for. Now, my presentation, the total time for my presentation is 50 minutes. I'm going to decide how to divide up that 50 minutes. Usually at a conference or something like that, you will be told, for example, 10 minutes plus 5 minutes for questions, or 40 minutes plus 10 minutes for questions, whatever. Okay? Well, I'm going to go on the low side for my talking, because these students don't want to listen to me talking for long. So I'm going to go for 30 minutes of me talking and then 20 minutes of questions. which is a very long time for questions, which means I need lots of them. This is okay at this stage because I am planning to have lots of audience participation. I'm expecting to have an audience that is quite keen on speaking up for themselves and making comments and things. So that's what I'm planning for. That's stage one of my preparation done. Well done me. Time for a coffee. If I had a nice big piece of paper, this is what I would be doing. And the first thing I'm going to do is to make something called a bubble diagram. The beauty of a bubble diagram is I can just put down any ideas that I think are relevant anytime I like. Okay, so I don't need to try and organize the talk at this stage. I'm just trying to get ideas down, get as many down as possible, and then I can decide later what I do and what I do not want in the talk. Time to speed it up. Renewable fuels, renewables, renewable energy, renewable sources. The beauty of a bubble diagram is that you can write on an idea anytime you have it, and you can find a place somewhere in your page for adding it in. That's very difficult to do with a linear list. You have to try and squeeze everything into the gaps that you've missed out before. So you can see that in a very kind of simple, natural way, I've been able to just get a bunch of ideas out from my head without having to plan anything yet. I'm just putting down these ideas. And I'm free to put in more ideas later. I'll need a smaller pen to fill in these gaps, but maybe I'll do that. But right now, already, I've got lots of ideas for things to go into my talk. But I've got to be careful because I've only budgeted 30 minutes for my talk, and this could easily go on for an hour. So I really have to be careful about what material goes in and what material doesn't, and how it goes in. Does it get a whole slide, or does it maybe just get a few words on one slide? The next stage is going to be crucial. Drawing out a rough draft, a linear plan now, and deciding how that is going to work into slides for my presentation. In the last part of the video, we looked at making a bubble diagram just to get our ideas down on paper and then decide how important is each bit. What parts am I going to put in and what parts am I not going to put in? And I'm going to use that 30-minute time limit to decide how much goes from that bubble diagram into my talk. Now the next stage is to make a linear list, to plan out my slides. Now I have often heard people say 1 slide per minute is about the right rate for a presentation. I've seen a lot of presentations, I've seen a lot of people plan 1 slide per minute, and it really depends on what kind of presentation you're doing. If you're doing something with lots of pictures where you can say, here's a picture, click, here's another picture, click, here's another picture, you can throw in lots of slides. But if you're doing something with a lot of details, for example, in my field, we often have a lot of organic chemistry, and you can talk about 1 slide for a long time. We need significantly less than 1 slide per minute. And I generally find that as long as people speak slowly and clearly, about 7 slides in 10 minutes is about the right rate. I've got 30 minutes, 7 minutes per 10 minutes. I've got roughly 21 slides. Okay, 21 slides. Let's have a think about that. Let's just write down some numbers here. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Well, obviously, slide 1 is going to be our introduction. So, explain the concept. So, in my first slide, I'm going to introduce myself. Oh, need to write that up, introduction. I'm going to introduce myself and then explain the concept of the talk. I'm going to tell them how I'm going to give them some ideas about how they can join in the fight against climate change. Now, what's going to really help me here is having that bubble diagram. If you're smart, you'll have that piece of paper that you wrote on before. I've got it on the other side of the board, but also, rather handily, of course, I took a photo on my phone. So let's have a quick look at my photo. Alternatives to fossil fuels. Thanks to my bubble diagram, I can see that I've got lots of different things to talk about, alternatives to fossil fuels. I'm going to need way more than a minute and a third. I mean, just this is probably going to be about 5 minutes by the time I've asked questions and things. Let's see how that goes. I'm going to I'm going to be cutting down this number of slides, maybe down to just 15. Should have gone in my bubble diagram. I'm just going to write it here. There's energy transmission. We haven't talked about energy transmission yet. That is something we will have to discuss. And that means I'm turning this list into a bit of a bubble diagram now, but that's okay. I'll make it work later. "15 slides, that's going to be at least 2 minutes per slide. You know what? I reckon 10 slides is going to be plenty for me. "15 slides means 2 minutes per slide, so 2 minutes probably will be too much. But I've got that cushion, right? I've given myself a 20-minute cushion to talk for too long. We've got up to 50 minutes just for me, so I think we should be okay. All right, this is going to be my basic linear plan, and it's time for me to take a break for today.